What? Yeah, so I don't know why inherently I feel like every podcast should start with a song. And yeah, you can't just play someone's music because it won't get uploaded. Copyright issues and things of that nature. So, but yeah, I feel like I should do an explanation or an introduction to the show, the dailies that I'm trying to. Mike and I have begun, and it really just started with I wanted to do a podcast with a friend, and so I was trying to think of any sort of platform or agenda or something that I could share with a pal that would be not just us talking in general, because I'm not sure that if you're not well known or you're not famous or you're not a personality or something like that, or you're not known to be an expert in a field or something, then it's really hard to get a podcast off the ground if it's just you talking to a friend about nothing. So I was trying to find like a niche, and I thought about like doing a maker's podcast, but that's way too small of a niche. And like, if you're a leather worker, then you're not going to want to listen to like a wood making or a carpentry podcast and vice versa. So I just figured, I thought about the news and I thought about my disposition when it comes to like daily news and it comes to current events. And I think I'm just like everybody else. I pick and choose the news as I want to hear it. And I choose the source that I want to hear it from. So, sometimes it can be biased, the news that I get. And I'm not sure, I don't think I care much about a lot of the news. But thinking back, going through my friends, and I'm thinking about the friends that I have a good rapport with. I'm thinking about the friends that, make me laugh, friends that I can have a conversation with for a long time. Like, I had a friend in mind, Adam, my buddy from work, that I wanted to do a podcast about, but, I don't know if we had anything like he's one of the funniest people I know. And I thought this would be great because we have this, we laugh about a lot of things while we were working together, or we'd always have something that would be cracking us up. But I'm not sure. It was always very specific stuff that it wouldn't generally get a laugh unless you had like the context of what we were talking about. So I did do a podcast with him. Like, I did try it out. Finally, I got him to say yes, and it just didn't go the way I thought it would have gone. And it was fun. We had a lot of fun, and I still have a lot of fun with him, but it just seemed like it would be hard to get him on a regular basis to be on a podcast that I could set up a schedule for. So, we live kind of far and everything. And, when I started thinking about Mike after, me and Mike have stayed in contact like via text message throughout the years, but he's always been very elusive. Like, sometimes he doesn't have a phone number, or he's changed his phone number, and sometimes he's really available and will like hit you with a ton of text, and sometimes he's like completely missing and you can't get a hold of him. But I decided to call him, and just the conversation we had over the phone was long and fun and everything. And I just thought, you know what, man, when I was friends with Mike, well, I shouldn't say that. Obviously, I'm still friends with Mike. We're still friends, but when I was working with Mike, like living close to him and seeing him more regularly, he was like my source for the younger generation's perspective on the world, really. And Mike gets very passionate about certain news topics, and I think he can kind of give a very unique perspective, and he can take a stand on something, a strong stand on something that you would never guess is something that he cares about. So I don't know anyone else like him who can talk, can like uphold a conversation on a topic. Like, he's super smart and he speaks well. He's eloquent. Like, he makes points that sound, they just hit home. The way he'll explain or describe something, it can hit home. And I think he's just really good with that. And he's obviously very funny guy. But the combination of that and his, he's been a bartender, he's been a server, he's just really social. And seeing that the way he runs the way he interacts with people a lot of the time it's online, and he's, on a microphone, live casting or in front of a camera, which takes a certain type of personality. There's plenty of people that will have a great rapport with them, and then you tell them that you're recording, and it just, they can't get past it, or they become something else when the record button, when you press record. So, and that, Mike, that doesn't happen to at all. He is who he is, whether there's an audience or not. So I just felt like he'd be a good guy to do this with. And the first few shows have been unorganized, just us having a conversation. We might talk about something that's happening like in the news politically, but we didn't have any real organization. We're just trying to like feel things out. And I think the next show we will have a better like platform. It'll be segmented. Number one, 45 minutes is a short time when it's two people, because right when you just start getting into it, by the time you start talking about something that's important, your time's almost up. So if you're a solo podcaster and the platform you're on, you're paying for a 45-minute, that's the limit, then, and you're doing it by yourself, it's plenty of time. There's times where I, do an episode about Rachel, and I would run out of things to say after 30 minutes because it's just you. So I'm not sure. I may have to lengthen that the time limit for us, but and I do think there's certain things that beyond the daily news that I think he'd be a good person to talk about with. There's tons of topics that I would love to get into, like, especially, and they are current news, big stories. Like, everyone knows that addiction and recovery is a huge thing in Massachusetts. Not so much recovery, and that's the problem. There is I'm not discrediting the recovery community here in Massachusetts, but there's a need for more of it, and the addiction problem is really dreadful. There's people dropping like flies. It's extremely dangerous out there. If you're struggling with addiction, the chemicals that are available on the streets nowadays are killing people from all walks of life. This used to be something that was, it was constricted to like people that were in a poverty level living situation or certain areas of the city, but now it's widespread. It's throughout all walks of life. All economic levels are affected by it. So, I think that if we're not in the beginning stages of a revolution in how we look at, and care for people suffering from addiction, then we damn well should be. It's at epidemic levels. And if you're removed from it, then even if you're far removed from it, then you know somebody who knows somebody, at least, who's been affected by it in a big way. Obviously, I've been affected by it in my life, and it makes, I have a predisposition I'm empathetic towards anyone who's going through it, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes I have to step back and remember what it was like to be there, because if I see someone struggling, I want to hit them with all the answers and all of my resources and all of the things that helped me and guide them in the right direction and everything. And I forget sometimes what it's like to be that person. And there's only so much that you can do to help someone who's struggling with addiction. But I do think that the resources we do have set up currently they're obviously not working. I've been lucky enough where my family and Rachel and the people that were around me, guided me in the right direction, and I just got lucky. I got very lucky. I had hit a real rock bottom, and I had a purpose and a reason to get my shit together, and things just lined up in the right way. And don't get me wrong, it was hard. It was, I had some dark years, but I think as soon as I decided that I was just powerless over it, then it wasn't so dark. The darker years were when I was running around using, and the consequences. I'll always deal with the consequences. I was deep enough where some of my consequences they're inescapable, like financially, occupationally, things of that nature. The things that you've done, you can make amends, and you can correct them, and you can apologize, and you can do everything you can to try to reverse those things that you did, but they're still there. And so I do feel like I spent a large portion of my life fighting. What happened with Rachel and her getting sick was the first struggle I had, the hardest struggle I had. But it was the first struggle that was not a result of my poor decision making. It was something that was completely out of our hands. Shit luck, and it's just life's the things that can happen in life. So, but grief, cancer, illness is just like addiction in that everyone knows somebody who's dealing with it. And grief even more, if you haven't dealt with it yet, it's inescapable. Everyone in their life, if you live long enough, will eventually have to deal with some heavy grief. So the podcast, it was a good outlet for me, but I found a different outlet now that's much more constructive and helpful. And I wanted to continue podcasting, but do it, just find other topics to talk about and do it in a much lighter and fun way. And Mike is perfect for it. He's very knowledgeable about what's going on in the world as far as the stuff that he's interested in. But he surprises you with the things that he knows about. He's very surprising. And when he speaks about it, he doesn't hem and haw at all. I'm my style is much slower and deliberate, but Mike can just take you on any ride you want. If you pick a topic, he can take you on a ride. If you don't know about it, he'll tell you about it, and he can tell you in a very, very informative and eloquent way. So I think he's perfect for the podcast, and that's where we're going to go moving forward. So I just figured I would upload today because I had a few extra minutes on my hands. So that's it.